the environmental issues facing the ocean today? The ocean is a vast open area of sea and it's in danger. In fact, it's been in danger for a while. Sure, while we do learn about this in school, we don't learn too much in depth of the pressing issues that the ocean is facing today. The two topics that we are discussing are plastic pollution and ocean acidification. Our solution to plastic pollution is making recycling more accessible. This will allow for more recycling and less trash in the landfills that will end up in the ocean. Our second solution is to make a separate population-based gas tax that is independent from the state sales tax. This would help to create more funding for improved roads. However, a higher tax would convince people to walk, bike, or carpool places if they want to avoid higher gas prices. We believe that these solutions we have come up with can help to solve these problems in the ocean today.
So many people are unaware or unable to participate in recycling. Materials like plastic and paper have been known to recycle, but other materials like metal and glass are less known about and more likely to end up in overflowing landfills. The access to recycling centers and/or bins is sparse and needs to be increased. We want recycling bins to be required at all homes and apartments. Every home should come with at least one recycling bin, instead of having to request it from waste companies. Without proper access to recycling, our landfills are overflowing with materials that could have been recycled, made into new products, and put back into our communities. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, recycling, including composition, diverted 82 million tons of materials away from landfills and incinerators in 2006. This means that 30% of waste generated by Americans was recycled. That rate is better than it has been in the past, but is still not nearly good enough to save our planet. There is now 5.25 trillion macro and micro pieces of plastic in our oceans, weighing up to almost 270,000 tons. Every day, around 8 million pieces of plastic end up in our oceans. On a bigger scale, this is killing over 1 million animals, including mammals, birds, fish, turtles, and sharks every year. The decrease of plastic and other waste needs to start with our generation so we can restore our ecosystems. Studies have proven that those with less access to curbside recycling are less likely to pack up all of their recyclable materials, load them in their cars, and drive miles away just to save a few plastic items. This picture shows the demographics of people with curbside access recycling. In this case, people in the Northeast are more likely to recycle because they have better access than people in the West. The problem with that is with everyone deciding to throw out a few plastic bottles, our landfills are collecting almost 30.8 billion water bottles. One individual water bottle takes up to 1,000 years to fully decompose. In that time, the water bottle is likely to travel and end up in oceans, which is not accounting for the 60 million plastic water bottles that Americans produce every day. The U.S. population looks at this issue at the small-scale individual level, but we need to be viewing this at the large-scale national level and see how extremely threatening it is and how much we need change. We believe that this starts at the access of recycling bins and centers.
Our second problem that we wanted to help solve is ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is the process of CO2 getting in the water from the burning of fossil fuels. The fossil fuels in the form of gas linger in the air and eventually fall and mix with the water. The CO2 in the water reduces the amount of carbonate ions. These are needed by organisms because they help them build bone structure and shells. Without these, organisms have significantly less chance of survival. Our solution is to redirect road funding taxes from state sales tax to a population-based tax. But how exactly does this affect ocean acidification? Well, it all boils down to traffic efficiency. The biggest source of CO2 is car exhaust, and much of this comes from idling in traffic. In fact, according to EDF.org, an idling car uses between 1/5 to 7/10 of a gallon of fuel an hour. An idling diesel truck burns approximately 1 gallon of fuel an hour. With the average U.S. prices for diesel fuel topping $2 a gallon, that's about $2 an hour wasted. In order to reduce the amount of time spent idling, we need to focus on cutting down traffic and making our roads more efficient. For example, take a look at what they're doing here in Fishers. They're building roundabouts at major intersections along State Road 37. With these new roundabouts, people spend less time in traffic and therefore less time idling. But of course, with construction, there comes the need for more funding, and that's where the taxes come in. Road construction companies like INDOT get their funding from a multitude of sources, like gas taxes and toll roads. The federal government also pays a certain amount, but it varies from state to state. This map shows the amount of funding for road construction in each state. The darker the state is, the higher percentage of funding comes from the people. Take a look at Hawaii at number 1. 73% of its funding comes from the people, and from things like gas taxes and toll roads. Compare that to California at number 12 with only 60%. But when you think about it, California should be paying a higher amount. After all, it's a bigger state with more people and more roads, and therefore a bigger need for road efficiency. They also produce more CO2 than Hawaii does. Currently, the gas tax depends on the state sales tax percentage. If states with a higher population need more funding from these taxes, then the gas tax should be independent from the state sales tax. States should come up with a way of determining a different tax percentage that is based on the population of the state. Therefore, the higher population in a state, the higher they will have to pay on their gas tax. Obviously, this is going to cause some problems as a lot of people aren't going to want to pay that tax. However, with the higher gas tax, people are going to feel more inclined to find other modes of transportation that do not require them to pay for gas. People will be walking more, they will ride more bikes, take the bus, or even carpool. So even if people resort to other modes of transportation, there's still going to be less CO2 in the air and in the water.
We believe that making recycling more accessible in housing areas will help people recycle more. It can help those people who do want to recycle be able to recycle. Making a separate population-based gas tax that is independent from the state sales tax will create more funding for better roads. If there is a higher tax on gas, people who are more hesitant to pay this can instead take public transportation, walk, ride a bike, or even carpool instead. This can take away a lot of the CO2 that is emitted into the air. These two topics tie into each other. Many people have to drive just to reach a recycling center, and this extra driving adds to the amount of CO2 in the air. These issues will someday come back around to humans and possibly endanger our lives in the future if we don't work together to stop these problems now.